Hey everybody, and welcome to the University of Rhode Island College Algebra Enhancement video series. In this video we're going to be talking about the quadratic formula. So let's kind of talk about what our goal is. Our goal is to solve the quadratic equation. This is the general quadratic equation ax squared plus bx plus c. A, b, and c are thought to be constants, so we can change what these are. And just as an example here, let's look at this quadratic equation, 2x squared minus x minus 1. Now this is called a quadratic equation because the highest power of x that we see is a 2. So anytime that happens, you are dealing with a quadratic equation, and the way to solve that, one technique to solve that, is the technique we're going to learn today. Now notice for this equation, I'm not going to show you how to solve it right now, but if I took the value x equal to 1, and I plug that into this equation, that's 2 times 1 squared minus 1 minus 1. I notice that I get 0. So this value of x is a solution to this quadratic equation because it satisfies that equality. So when you evaluate the equation at x equal to 1, you get the equality. So now I just pulled 1 out of the air. In the next example, in the next slide, I'm going to explain how you can actually solve this equation to find these results. So here's the general quadratic equation, ax squared plus bx plus c. To solve this equation, and again, what I mean by solve is I mean find all of the x values which satisfy this equation. To solve that, we have several different techniques, and the first technique we're going to learn is called the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula is given here, where you take the constants from the equation and you plug them into the formula as designated by this formula. The plus or minus means that you're going to essentially use the formula twice. You're going to use it once where you use the plus and again where you use the minus. Okay? So because of this reason, there are 3 distinct possibilities. First of all, from the formula you can get 2 distinct solutions, real numbers, 2 real numbers. You might also only get 1 solution, or you might get no solutions. And we're going to do one example to show all of these different possibilities. So let's A. So let's solve, example 1, A. Let's solve each of these following quadratic equations. So here's the technique. I'm given this quadratic equation, x squared plus x equal to 2. That doesn't look like the form I gave you, but we can quickly bring it to the form by moving the 2 to the left. Okay, and with that done, now we want to find out the values for A, B, and C. So note that right in front of the x there's a 1, that's your A value. Right in front of the x here, there's a 1, that's your B value. And then C is the minus 2. All right, so we have our 3 values that we're going to use in the quadratic formula. So here's the quadratic formula here from the previous slide. We have our A, B, and C value, and we're going to plug everything in. Remember the order of operations. So let me plug everything in first, and then we'll talk about simplifying it. Notice my use of parentheses here, especially with the minus 2. So this minus sign is from the formula, but this minus 2 is the value of C. So I use a lot of parentheses there so that I can make sure to not make any mistakes with my arithmetic. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the order of operations that you learned in a previous lesson. And I'm going to simplify inside of the square root first. So we have 1, and then when we do this multiplication out, you're going to end up with a positive 8. And that's all divided by 2. Okay. Simplifying this further, that's negative 1, plus or minus. Again, you can kind of carry that plus or minus until the end, and we'll find our 2 answers in the end. And we continue simplifying, so this is negative 1 plus or minus 3 over 2. And I'm going to have to move this a little bit. Oh, I didn't want to do that. Give me 1 second. So we have negative 1 plus or minus 3 over 2. And this is when you're going to kind of branch this into 2 pieces here. On top, you're going to keep the plus. And on the bottom here, we'll find the answer with the minus sign. All right, and you evaluate them both. So negative 1 plus 3 is 2 over 2. So we get a 1 here. And negative 1 minus 3 is minus 4 over 2. So I get a negative 2. Okay, so these are my two solutions, x equal to 1 and x equal to minus 2. So what does that mean? Well, it means that we're dealing with a situation where we have two solutions, x equal to 1 and x equal to minus 2. So if I were to take those values back to this original equation and plug them in, I would find that the equation is satisfied. And that'd be a good thing for you guys to check on your own. All right. Let's go to the second example. Here's part B. We have x squared equal to 4x minus 4. Now the first step is to collect all of the terms onto one side. So in our case, I'm going to bring everything to the left. You don't have to do that, but that's just what I prefer. The next step is to identify what your a, b, and c values are. So in this case, now the coefficient on the x squared is really a 1, so a is 1, b is minus 4, that's the coefficient on the x, and c is 4. All right, and then we're going to go right into the quadratic formula. So this is what we have here, and what I want to really point out in this situation is my use of parentheses. Notice that those parentheses are really important because it'll highlight that negative sign on the outside of the minus 4, and the parentheses right in here are very important because it stresses the fact that you're squaring negative 4 instead of squaring 4 and then taking the negative of it. All right, so then we simplify this. On the outside we just have a positive 4. On the inside you have negative 4 squared, which is 16, minus 16 all over 2. And this actually works out really nicely because this entire term here, square root of 16 minus 16, is really just square root of 0, so that goes to 0. And we have 4 over 2, which is just 2. Okay, so this is one of the situations where we only have one solution, and that solution is x equal to 2. All right. The answer is going to be, because we haven't done a no solution example yet, so let's do that here. Again, we want to bring everything to one side, so it looks convenient to bring it all to the right. So I'll have x minus x squared minus 1, and really, just to kind of make sure that you get the right constants, it's best to write this in the normal order, so with the x squared term first, and then descending from there. So from that you can find out what a, b, and c are. We get minus 1 for a, 1, and minus 1 for c. Okay? So again, we go back to the quadratic equation, so let me pause and write that here. And then we plug in everything that we know. So we have negative b, which is negative 1, plus or minus b squared minus 4. Again, use of parentheses, be very careful. Notice all the negative signs there. That's the trickiest part with the quadratic formula, is keeping track of your minus signs. So use as many parentheses as you want, or as you can, just to make sure that you don't make mistakes here. And then the simplification step is really where you want to go slow and make sure that you get everything simplified properly. So this whole nonsense here, we have 3 negative signs. So you'll realize that that means that we end up with negative 4. And then on the bottom, we have negative 2. And immediately there's a problem because I have the square root of negative 3. All right. Square roots of negative numbers are not real numbers. Okay, so we have not learned how to deal with these yet. You will in pre-calculus. But for our purposes, this quadratic equation has no real solutions. It has imaginary solutions, which you're going to learn how to find, but it has no real solutions. So this is one of the possibilities that we talked about before, where you have no solutions to your quadratic equation. Hopefully this helps, guys, and good luck with everything.